Welcome to Human Growth and Development. Chapter 1. Lecture notes created by Dr. Michael J. Alicea, Adjunct Professor, Miami-Dade College, Social Science Department, Kendall Campus. We believe you will all come to appreciate and develop by examining the issues that will be covered in class, the relevancy of the course contents as it applies to gaining a further appreciation of this foundation course in psychology. This course examines the physical, cognitive, social, and emotional development of human beings from conception to death. Students will learn about theories of development, key issues in the field, and apply research in developmental psychology throughout the prenatal, infancy, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood periods of the lifespan. Your instructor will spend the first day of class getting you familiar with the structure and expectations of this course. He will cover a large amount of material during this semester. We encourage you all to read ahead prior to the class lectures. Additional information about the class will be provided in the syllabus. Please read the syllabus if you have the time prior to class. Your instructor will be reviewing the syllabus with you in class. We are hopeful that you will acquire much from this course and enjoy the experience as well. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, your instructor will be available to meet prior to and after class time. Your instructor looks forward to working with everyone throughout the semester, and thank you for enrolling in the course. The science of human development seeks to understand how and why people, all kinds of people, everywhere, of every age, change over time. The goal is for the almost 8 billion people on Earth to fulfill their potential. Growth is multidirectional, multi-contextual, multicultural, multidisciplinary, and plastic. 1. What does it mean to you that growth is multidirectional? 2. What are the implications? The science of human development seeks to understand how and why people, all kinds of people, everywhere, of every age, change over time. The goal is for the almost 8 billion people on Earth to fulfill their potential. Growth is multidirectional, multi-contextual, multicultural, multidisciplinary, and plastic. 1. What does it mean to you that growth is multidirectional? 2. What are the implications? To avoid unexamined opinions and to rein in personal biases, researchers follow the 5 steps of the scientific method. 1. Begin with curiosity. On the basis of theory, prior research, or a personal observation, pose a question. 2. Develop a hypothesis. Shape the question into a hypothesis, a specific prediction that can be tested. 3. Test the hypothesis. Design and conduct research to gather empirical evidence, data. 4. Analyze the evidence. Conclude whether the hypothesis is supported or not, and analyze any interesting nuances, such as age and gender differences. Interpret strong or weak results. 5. Report the results. Share data, conclusions, and alternative explanations. How can you as a student put into practice the scientific method in your own inquiries? Replication. Repeating the procedures and methods of a study with different participants is often a 6th step of the scientific method. Scientists study the reports of other scientists, step 5, and build on what has gone before, back to step 1. Ideally, before any conclusion is accepted, results are replicated, not only by performing the same study again, step 3, but also by designing other studies that can verify and extend the same hypothesis. Hypotheses are often stated in advance. Details of the data are available to other scientists. Studies are likely to include more participants to prevent a few outliers from skewing the results. Why is replication such an important component to the scientific method? Nature refers to the influence of the genes that people inherit. Nurture refers to environmental influences, beginning with the health, diet, and stress of the future person's mother at conception, and continuing lifelong, including experiences in the family, school, community, and nation. The nature-nurture debate has many manifestations, among them heredity, environment, maturation, learning, and sex. Gender. Some people believe that most traits are inborn, that children are innately good, an innocent child, or bad. Beat the devil out of them. Others stress nurture, crediting or blaming parents or neighborhoods or drugs, or even additives in the food, when someone is good or bad, a hero or a villain. Genes and the environment both affect every characteristic. Nature always affects nurture, and then nurture affects nature. What is your opinion on the subject of traits being inborn? Are there other contributing factors? A further complication is that the impact of any good or bad experience might be magnified or inconsequential because of particular genes or past events. Every adult can remember a remark or an incident from childhood that is seared in memory because it caused pain, or shame, or joy. Each aspect of nature and nurture depends on other aspects of nature and nurture in ways that themselves vary because of the nature and nurture of each individual. What are the implications for memory being such an important component to the developing human being? The effect of an offhand remark illustrates differential susceptibility. People vary in how sensitive they are to any particular words or drugs or experiences, either because of the particular genes they have inherited or because of events years earlier. The lifespan perspective considers all aspects of the entire life. That leads to the realization that human development is multidirectional, multi-contextual, multicultural, multidisciplinary, and plastic. Age is a crucial variable, and development can be segmented into periods of study. Approximate ages for each period are given here. Multiple changes, in every direction, characterize life. Traits appear and disappear, with increases, decreases, and zigzags. Sometimes discontinuity is evident. Change can occur rapidly and dramatically. Caterpillars become butterflies. Loners fall in love. Sometimes continuity is found. Growth can be gradual. Is there ever a possibility where growth can no longer be a factor to the developing human being? Is the aspect of change always a constant in the development of a human being? The timing of losses and gains, impairments or improvements, is affected by age and maturation. Some changes are sudden and profound because of a critical period, which is either when something must occur to ensure normal development, or the only time when an abnormality might occur. Life has few critical periods. Often, however, a particular development occurs more easily, but not exclusively, at a certain time. This is called a sensitive period. Humans are intensely social creatures, so a fourth category, the social context, is crucial. The social context includes all other people who influence each individual. In the same way, we each experience several contexts each day, some by choice and some involuntarily, and they affect our later thoughts and actions. Why are humans so inclined to be social creatures? 12. What would be some of the repercussions for not being social? A leading developmentalist, Yuri Bronfenbrenner, emphasized the power of context. This approach recognizes three nested levels. 1. Most obvious is the microsystem, each person's immediate social context, such as family and peer group. 2. Also important is the exosystem, local institutions such as school and church. 3. Beyond that is the macrosystem, the larger social setting, including cultural values, economic policies, and political processes. According to developmental researcher Yuri Bronfenbrenner, each person is significantly affected by interactions among a number of overlapping systems, which provide the context of development. Microsystems, family, peer group, classroom, neighborhood, house of worship, intimately and immediately shape human development. Surrounding and supporting the microsystems are the exosystems, which include all the external networks, such as community structures and local educational, medical, employment, and communication systems, that affect the microsystems. Influencing both of these systems is the macrosystem, which includes cultural patterns, political philosophies, economic policies, and social conditions. Mesosystems refer to interactions among systems, as when parents and teachers coordinate to educate a child. Bronfenbrenner eventually added a fifth system, the chronosystem, to emphasize the importance of historical time. Two more systems affect these three. One is the chronosystem, literally, time system, which is the historical context. 2. The other is the mesosystem, consisting of the connections among the other systems. Psychologists have used Bronfenbrenner's systems approach to answer that question, finding causes in all systems simultaneously. What are the implications for this consideration of the macrosystem for human beings? All persons born within a few years of one another are called a cohort, a group defined by its members' shared age. Cohorts travel through life together, experiencing at each age particular values, events, and technologies. Imagine growing up before contraception, or color television, or social media. Some scholars believe that the economic context is even more important than the historical one. Each person's socioeconomic status, abbreviated SES. SES is not solely about income. It also reflects education, occupation, and neighborhood. The combination affects development much more than money alone. How important is the socioeconomic considerations in the development of a person throughout the life cycle? For social scientists, culture is the system of shared beliefs, conventions, norms, behaviors, expectations, and symbolic representations that persist over time and prescribe social rules of conduct. Is culture an important variable in the development of a person? Why or why not? Culture is far more than food or clothes. It is a set of ideas, beliefs, and patterns. Culture is a powerful social construction, that is, a concept created or constructed by a society. Social constructions affect how people think and act, what they value, ignore, and punish. Everyone is multicultural, and everyone sometimes experiences a clash between their cultures. Everyone is inclined to believe that their culture is better than others. This tendency has benefits. Generally, people who appreciate their own culture are happier, prouder, and more willing to help strangers. However, that belief becomes destructive if it reduces respect for people from other groups. Developmentalists recognize the difference equals deficit error, which is the belief that people unlike us, different, are inferior, deficit. The difference equals deficit error is one reason that a careful multicultural approach is necessary. Never assume that another culture is wrong and inferior, or the opposite, right and superior. Assumptions can be harmful. Why is it so harmful to make assumptions? Is there any time when an assumption has an important consideration? Cultural clashes fuel wars and violence when differences are seen as deficits. To prevent that, we need to understand the terms ethnicity and race. Members of an ethnic group almost always share ancestral heritage, and often have the same national origin, religion, and language. Ethnicity is a social construction, a product of the social context, not biology. Ethnic groups often share a culture, but not necessarily. Biologists now recognize race as a social construction. The relationship between racial pride and racial prejudice is complex. Ethnic pride, but not personal experiences with discrimination, predicts more positive attitudes about oneself and about other groups. In your opinion, what would be the difference between racial pride and racial prejudice? Which of the two is helpful, and which is potentially harmful? Intersectionality begins with the idea that we each are pushed and pulled, sometimes strongly, sometimes weakly, sometimes by ourselves, sometimes by authorities, by our gender, religion, generation, nation, age, and ethnic group. Intersectionality focuses attention on power differences between groups, bringing special attention to the needs of people who are simultaneously in several marginalized groups. Intersectionality highlights discrimination in many institutions. Gears, systems of social categorization and group power, intersect to influence everyone, every day. What would be the implications and/or harm with acceptance of intersectionality with groups? Development is often considered in three domains: biosocial, cognitive, and psychosocial. Each domain is the focus of several academic disciplines. 1. Biosocial includes biology, neuroscience, and medicine. 2. Cognitive includes psychology, linguistics, and education. 3. Psychosocial includes economics, sociology, and history. Human development requires insights and information from many scientists, past and present, in many disciplines. Our understanding of every topic benefits from multidisciplinary research. Scientists hesitate to apply general conclusions about human life until they are substantiated by several disciplines, each specializing. Genes affect every aspect of behavior. But even monozygotic twins, with identical genes, differ biologically, cognitively, and socially. Every academic discipline risks becoming a silo, that is, a storage tank for research in that discipline, isolated from other disciplines. Breaking out of silos can illuminate topics that mystified scientists who were stuck in their own discipline. Why is it so difficult for academic disciplines to escape the silo effect? Multidisciplinary research broadens and deepens our knowledge of human development. People are complex, and to properly grasp all of the systems, from the workings of the microbiome in the gut to the effects of climate change throughout the entire world, requires a multidisciplinary approach. Adding to this complexity, people change. Plasticity denotes two complementary aspects of development. Human traits can be molded, as plastic can be. Yet people maintain a certain durability of identity, as plastic does. The concept of plasticity in development provides both hope and realism. Hope because change is possible, and realism because development builds on what has come before. Are there positive implications for subscribing to the idea of plasticity in human beings? Plasticity is basic to our contemporary understanding of human development. This is evident in the dynamic systems approach. The idea is that human development is an ongoing, ever-changing interaction between the body and mind, and between each person and every aspect of the environment. This includes all of the systems of the ecological systems approach. With any topic, stage, or problem, the dynamic systems approach urges consideration of all interrelated aspects, every social and cultural factor, over days and years. Plasticity is apparent when developmentalists consider the life of any human being. Everyone's brain and body would have been different if they had been born in another culture, grown up in another era, eaten other food, witnessed particular events, with different parents, friends, teachers, and so on. Scientific observation requires researchers to record behavior systematically and objectively. Observations can occur in three ways: a naturalistic setting such as a home, in a laboratory, where scientists observe human reactions, or by analyzing data collected for other reasons. All three kinds of observation evoke hypotheses, providing questions that need to be studied further. What would be a kinetiary note to consider in scientific? The experiment establishes what causes what. In the social sciences, experimenters typically impose a particular treatment on a group of participants, or expose them to a specific condition, and then note whether their behavior changes. What can you learn? Scientists first establish what is, and then they try to change it. In one recent experiment, Deb Kellerman, shown here, established that few children under age 12 understand a central concept of evolution: natural selection. Then she showed an experimental group a picture book illustrating the idea. Success. The independent variable, the book, affected the dependent variable, the children's ideas, which confirmed Kellerman's hypothesis. Children can understand natural selection if instruction is tailored to their ability. In technical terms, the experimenters manipulate an independent variable, which is the extra treatment or special condition, also called the experimental variable. A variable is anything that can vary. They note whether this independent variable affects whatever they are studying, called the dependent variable, which depends on the independent variable. A typical experiment has two groups of participants. One group, the experimental group, experiences the particular treatment or condition, the independent variable. The other group, the comparison group, also called the control group, does not. Every research design, method, and statistic has strengths as well as weaknesses. To assess conclusions, developmentalists analyze the data, participants, and methods of other scientists. Questioning and replicating are part of the process. No single study is conclusive. The meta-analysis, which is an analysis that combines many studies and summarizes the results. This makes sense, in that some studies might have too few participants, or some unknown bias in the design, or some oddity in the results. Meta-analyses do not always reach clear conclusions. Developmentalists must measure how people change or remain the same over time, as the definition stresses. Remember that systems are dynamic, ever-changing. To capture that dynamism, developmental researchers use one of three basic research designs: cross-sectional, longitudinal, and cross-sequential. The quickest and least expensive way to study development over time is with cross-sectional research, in which groups of people of one age are compared with people of another age. Cross-sectional design seems simple. To help discover whether age itself rather than cohort causes a developmental change, scientists undertake longitudinal research. They collect data repeatedly on the same individuals over time. Longitudinal research can span a few years, but for insight about the lifespan, the same individuals may be studied for decades. Long-term research requires patience and dedication from many scientists. Longitudinal data are cherished by developmentalists. They show at what point in the lifespan to focus on better health practices, education, family interactions. Developmentalists must measure how people change or remain the same over time, as the definition stresses. Remember that systems are dynamic, ever-changing. To capture that dynamism, developmental researchers use one of three basic research designs: cross-sectional, longitudinal, and cross-sequential. The quickest and least expensive way to study development over time is with cross-sectional research, in which groups of people of one age are compared with people of another age. Cross-sectional design seems simple. To help discover whether age itself rather than cohort causes a developmental change, scientists undertake longitudinal research. They collect data repeatedly on the same individuals over time. Longitudinal research can span a few years, but for insight about the lifespan, the same individuals may be studied for decades. Long-term research requires patience and dedication from many scientists. Longitudinal data are cherished by developmentalists. They show at what point in the lifespan to focus on better health practices, education, family interactions. Scientists have discovered a third strategy: combining cross-sectional and longitudinal research. This combination is called cross-sequential research, also referred to as cohort sequential or time sequential research. With this design, researchers study several groups of people of different ages, a cross-sectional approach, follow them over the years, a longitudinal approach, and then combine the results. Cross-sequential research is complicated in recruitment and analysis, but it lets scientists disentangle age from history. The first well-known cross-sequential study, the Seattle Longitudinal Study, found that some intellectual abilities, vocabulary, increase even after age 60, whereas others, speed, start to decline at age 30, confirming that development is multidirectional. Cross-sequential research is useful for young adults as well. The scientific method illuminates and illustrates human development as nothing else does. Facts, consequences, and possibilities have emerged that would not be known without science, and people of all ages are healthier, happier, and more capable because of it. Developmentalists have also discovered unexpected sources of harm. Video games, cigarettes, television, shift work, lead, asbestos, and even artificial respiration are all less benign than people first thought. Probably the most common mistake in interpreting research is confusing correlation with causation. A correlation exists between two variables if one variable is more or less likely to occur when the other does. A correlation is positive if both variables tend to increase together or decrease together, negative if one variable tends to increase while the other decreases, and zero if no connection is evident. Many correlations are unexpected. Quantitative research data can be ranked or numbered, allowing easy translation across cultures. Quantities can be easily summarized, compared, charted, and replicated. Many scientists prefer quantitative research. Statistics require numbers. Quantitative data are easier to replicate and less open to bias. Many developmental researchers thus turn to qualitative research, from the word quality, asking open-ended questions, reporting answers in narrative, not numerical form. Qualitative researchers are interested in understanding how people interpret their experiences, how they construct their worlds. Qualitative research reflects cultural and contextual diversity, but it is also more vulnerable to bias and harder to replicate. Both types of research are needed. The most important challenge for all scientists is to follow ethical standards. Each professional society involved in research of human development has a code of ethics, a set of moral principles. Why is it important to establish ethical standards in any discipline? Collaboration, replication, and transparency are essential ethical safeguards. Hundreds of questions regarding human development need answers, and researchers have yet to find them. That is the most important ethical mandate of all. For instance, 1. Do we know enough about prenatal drugs to protect every fetus? 2. Do we know enough about world poverty to enable everyone to be healthy? 3. Do we know enough about transgender children, or single parenthood, or divorce, or same-sex marriages to ensure optimal development? 4. Do we know enough about dying to enable everyone to die with dignity?